Greetings, everyone. Dale Parrish, COS Today host, along with my co-host, Mr. Ken Kashuba.
Hi, Dale.
Hello, Ken. How you doing, bud?
Well, doing okay. Kind of picking up from last night's storms. I don't know. We had
You had some
really
storms last night, really?
we had some heavy thunderstorms. Yeah, I
Really?
mean, really heavy thunderstorms and branches and leaves and everything down. I thought
Really?
for sure we had something more going on, but yeah, we've had our share of boomers of the last.
Ken's located in about the center of the state of Indiana, and I'm up in the northeast corner of the state.
Yeah.
So I think we got a little rain. That's about it. Now it's been a very nice day up here today.
Oh yeah, much better than the 95s and 97s of the past couple of days. But
that's for sure. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Well, folks, we got a jam-packed show for you tonight, and just once in a while, I like to show this up. This is episode number 310, and Ken has been along for this ride for the last 168 of those. So, thanks for tagging along there, Ken.
I'm hoping maybe to hit 250 at the same time we celebrate next year,
Okay. Well, Ken, let's jump into our first segment, the In Focused segment. We've been doing this for some weeks now, and we've been getting a lot of good response on it. So this evening, I think hopefully our viewers will appreciate, we have a couple young ladies, COS leaders, that are going to join us this evening to talk about what's on their mind, what's their focus. So without further ado, let's bring these ladies on and introduce them. So here is Ms. Esther Cook, and let's bring on Miss Kristen Stanchu.
That's right. You got it. Let's try.
All right. Good. Esther, briefly, what is your role in Convention of States?
Hi, Dale and Ken. Great to be on. Thanks for having us. So I am the founder and lead coordinator for Leaders Launchpad, which is our state internship program here at Convention of States.
All right, good. And how many? You're starting a new class, right? Of interns. How many are there going to be?
So that's still secret information.
Oh, it is?
We're actually in the last couple of weeks of interviews, so we'll have more information about that in a couple of weeks, beginning of September. But we're really excited.
Okay.
We'll have you back, Esther.
Yeah. Well, Kristen, I hope you don't have any secrets. So what?
It depends on what you ask, but I don't think so.
What's your role in COS, Kristen?
Yeah, well, first, Dale, Ken, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me. And yeah, I'm the Operations Systems Manager at Convention of States, and I also serve as the Senior Coordinator for our other internship program on the national team, which is the Emerging Leaders Program. And we are also inaugurating a new class in a couple weeks here, and we will have 8 interns for this fall and spring.
Okay. All right. Good. Well, those are great programs. Obviously, it's important that we bring in young people into our organization. So it's very important. So thank you both for what you do for Convention of States. Well, as I explained to you, as best I could, this segment is called In Focus. So we want to hear from you, all 4 of us. What is our main focus? Maybe 1 or 2 topics. What's your main focus for what's happening in the world right now or in the news, however you want to classify that. So Esther, why don't you lead us off, if you would, please?
Absolutely. So as I mentioned earlier, I work with the Leaders Launchpad State Internship Program. And what I've had the privilege and opportunity to do over the past few weeks is talk to a lot of the young people of my generation who have awakened to the fact that we've got to do something to save our country. We can't just live our lives and hope that everything's going to work out, because we're seeing that it doesn't work that way. And so it's been really great to just see a lot of these people coming alive to the fact that I need to do something and I can do something. So not just staying in the depression of the world is going to hell in a handbasket, as you may have heard that phrase, but actually, okay, there's a lot of problems with the world, with our country, and I can be a part of the solution. I don't just have to watch helplessly from the sidelines as things go down the drain. And so really seeing that renewed optimism is really inspiring, really encouraging to me to see those people saying, I want to stand up. I want to fight for our freedom, just like our founders did, almost 250 years ago. And so that has been so encouraging. And also just to hear what is important to them. And so, a couple of the topics that have come up in a lot of these interviews, a lot of these conversations, is the inflation. That's really a big deal for probably all of you listening today. But imagine you're just out of college, you're starting a new job that maybe does not pay you millions and millions of dollars right off the bat, and you ideally want to live somewhere other than under a bridge. And so you're searching for your first apartment, and you're like, what? This tiny studio apartment, maybe in the area of town that your parents would not approve of you living in, and it's twice the amount that you expected to have to pay for it. It's just crazy.
Now, Esther, are you generally talking to college recent graduates, or those in their last year of school, or where are they in that?
It's a range from people graduating high school, maybe going off to college, maybe just starting their first job, to people throughout college, to college graduates. So it's that whole range.
I guess buying a house is almost out of the question then, I guess, isn't it?
Yeah, it's definitely an obstacle to a lot of people. I think at this point that's so far off of the even like, can I consider that? It's just, can I not live under a bridge? Because I think it's that survival first step. And then a lot of us would love to have a house once we have a family, and those costs are crazy right now too.
Well, Esther, a quick question, if I could as well, because I find it interesting that you're dealing with people that range from coming out of high school all the way up to people that are graduating college. Do you also find a lot of these young people with the cost of college also skyrocketing and what have you? Do younger people nowadays, do they actually make a conscious choice to either go or not go? And so in other words, do you find that some of the people you're dealing with are actually going to trade school or looking to, to become a plumber or a carpenter or something like that? Is that a, give me, I'm trying to get a sense of the equation of that, of people coming up in that generation.
It's a great topic. I think college is no longer the single answer that it used to be. Obviously, everybody's story is different, and I haven't talked to the whole country, but thank goodness. But just for time, I have limited time. But I think there's definitely more openness to, do I need to go to college? Or for sure, I've seen a lot of this, not going on past a bachelor's degree. So saying, instead of going on to get a master's or a doctorate, I'm going to get out and, get real world experience.
Really not planning on going for advanced degrees.
Yeah. And I know there's some people that go for trade schools too. And I think that's a very viable path that should be talked about more today.
And Esther, I mean, to jump off of your point there, I think it's something I've seen too, not just in my interactions with candidates, but also just my personal life, my friends, people I know and interact with, is because of not just the cost of living, but the cost of college and advanced education, like you and Dale were mentioning. It definitely is still an option. A lot of people still pursue it. It's still the majority, I would say, but it's no longer something that just by default everybody does. a lot more people are actually stopping to think about whether they want to take that on, because it's something that's no longer just a given for everybody. It's no longer the path that just everybody does, because a lot of people have stopped to question if it's really worth it from a financial standpoint, but I think also from a cultural and ideological standpoint. Education has been in the news a lot, and college campuses and universities and what's being taught at the universities, and just a lot of the propaganda there has been in the news a lot. And I think it does give a lot of people pause, especially if you're, kind of central on the political spectrum or more conservative on the political spectrum, of, is that really what I want to pay tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars to undergo? And a lot of people just say, no, actually, I can go get better experience elsewhere in an actual job, getting actual hands-on experience. And I think a lot of employers are looking at that too and saying, actually, we don't value a law degree from Harvard as much as we used to, or we don't value an advanced, master's degree or PhD from a different program, when, depending on the skills involved, real world experience might be better. And so I think all of those issues are converging right now.
100%.
Esther, did I hear you say that you have seen a lot of young people interested in doing something for the country, doing something for their state or for their community, getting involved, I guess is what I'm trying to get at. One of the things that we try to, on our program, COS Today, we try to approach things from what we call the COS perspective. And part of that perspective is our core values. And self-governance is one of our core values in Convention of States. Are we seeing a lot of young people interested in what we call self-governance, would you say?
Absolutely. And I think, bringing in what Kristen was just talking about too, we're thinking. And the first step to self-governance, I think, is to start to think, and not just to be willing or happy to be carried along on the current opinions, or, the peer pressure, peer culture. And so actually starting to think for yourself, to actually examine what's going on. And I think realizing ever more that if you don't think for yourself, somebody else will think for you. And I think a lot of the people in our generation are saying, I'd rather think for myself. And so I think that ties in perfectly with the self-governance that we talk about here at Convention of States.
Good. All right. Kristen, you probably haven't been giving any thought to anything here lately, I would imagine, right?
I mean, there's a few thoughts floating around there, given everything that's going on. I think there's, for me, a lot of things that are top of mind. I follow a lot of issues. I live in Washington, D.C., and so I feel like I'm, right up in front of a lot.
Nothing happening in your area at all.
Nothing at all. It's very quiet around here. But I think one of the interesting things, speaking of self-governance, that I've given thought to is when you see a lot of things happening, I think as a country, I think the way that I default to is we think about the federal government fixing everything. When there's problems, we blame the federal government for it. When we look for solutions, we look to the federal government. And, the Trump administration has done a lot of wonderful things. And I think from the COS perspective, we look at that with a little bit more of a tempered approach, which is, yes, I love a lot of the things that are happening. And I think a lot of the actions that are being taken have a good result. But really, the long-term perspective is, it's not the federal government's place to do a lot of things that it's doing right now. It's really our place as individuals in our communities and the states. And that's just a whole new way of thinking that we haven't had as Americans, broadly speaking, for a really long time. And we've only been around for 250 years as a country.
Well, and that's the self-governance thing that we've been touching on here, right?
Right. And so I think there's things where we just have to start thinking, not just how can Congress fix this issue or how can President Trump fix this issue, but how should this issue really be fixed constitutionally? What is a long-term solution to this problem? And I think that's where Convention of States comes in. That's where Article 5 comes in, where we can talk about fixing a broken system instead of just putting a Band-Aid on the problem. And there's a lot of things where we can complain about federal judges all day long, but there's something that we can structurally do to fix it. And I think that applies to most issues out there that I'm seeing. And I think it's a lot harder to think about those kinds of solutions and try to craft amendments and craft solutions that will fix the system as a whole, instead of just keeping the status quo of doing things via executive orders or waiting on Congress to do the thing that we want them to do.
Right. Very good. Well, that's heartening to hear, Ken. Sounds like,
if I could just tack on something towards the end of what Kirsten was saying, and I know one of the things that we strive for as I guess I'd put myself in the class of a conservative, and a constitutional conservative at that. And I think one of the things that we look for, that I always worry about, as I've, both Dale and I have gone through decades of living and experiencing life. So we kind of look back, and this is another reason we're bringing on some younger people, is because the news is really tough to watch at times, because all you see is a lot of bad and a lot of crime, and a lot of younger people getting involved in things they really shouldn't be getting involved in. And one of the things that I think we all look for, as far as the Article 5 and everything goes for, we all want a smaller government. Obviously, you talked about, you didn't want a federal government involved in everything you're doing, and people looking for help from the federal government. It should have its lanes there, and people should stay in that. And I got thinking, because again, when you watch the news, it can become quite depressing. But I thought about this in a way. A smaller government won't necessarily make people better, but better people make a smaller government possible. So a lot of times I wonder, on the younger generations, are they coming up with and reinstating some of the morals and some of the things that, the compass that kind of makes people better, and good people do make a smaller government possible, because that leads into self-governance. If you carry a lot of those qualities, you're able to basically self-govern yourself. Where the things I'm seeing on the news, these people aren't self-governing at all. They're picking up a handgun or a rifle, and they're going out and doing, carjacking cars and everything else. Mm-hmm. So, do you see that in a lot of the people that you talk about, or that, in your circle of friends? Is that something that they talk about or aware of, as far as that goes?
I would say for me, yes. I think in what I've seen is that people my age and, in my generation definitely have started to experience the negative implications of bigger government, like Esther said, not just monetarily, but also socially, culturally, taking God out of institutions, taking all morality out of institutions, the kind of moral relativism that's pervaded pretty much all of our institutions at this point. My generation is starting to wake up to, and it's people, whether they are religious, or maybe if they're not, they just have, the common sense to recognize that, hold on, we're going down a dangerous path. They are turning to things like that, because there is meaning to be found there. And when you look at the way that our culture has gone, it not only sucks out all the positive benefits that we've seen from being grounded in Judeo-Christian values, but it also sucks out all the meaning and purpose to life. And I think that's something that my generation is seeing and reacting to, and they want to rebuild culture. They want to rebuild our society for themselves. But I think we also see an aspect for the next generation. I think they're seeing something where, like, I obviously want to live in a better country, and so I'm going to do that for myself, but they're also starting to think about having a family and starting to think about what comes next. And they don't want their kids to grow up in that kind of culture. I know I don't want my kids to grow up in that kind of culture. And I think there's this theme of longevity that's coming up that we think about, not just in terms of policy of, okay, how can we come up with a solution that lasts longer than 4 years or lasts longer than 2 years? There's longevity in that sense, but also we want to build something that lasts for our children. And that's something that I think we are starting to see a revival of. You saw it in the medieval time and the Renaissance, and you see it in architecture and art, where people used to build for generations and not just for the current moment. And I think we're starting to see a resurgence of that. And that brings me a lot of joy and a lot of hope. But yeah, Esther, I don't know, what are you seeing on your end?
I totally agree with you, Kristen. I think, and pointing to what you said, Ken, of it's doing something because it's right as well. And I think in today's culture of so many things being quick and easy, we've got AI that will, I don't know, think your thoughts for you almost now, and then talk to people for you. It's gotten a little bit absurd, but in this era where it can be so quick and easy, I think people are realizing this is not what gives meaning and satisfaction to life. So they're searching for those things that are deeper, that are beyond just this superficial life, and looking for, okay, what's just right to do. And I think that's how you have to look at it, to instead of just putting the Band-Aid on and saying, well, maybe I need to go on welfare because I can't afford my apartment right now. Instead saying that's not the solution, even though it'd be easier at the moment. And that's what you said. You have to have that first before you can have a more limited government. It's got to go hand in hand. And so I have a lot of hope as well, seeing people, more willing to have a hard temporary for a better longevity.
I gotta ask you too this question. I don't mean to embarrass anyone, but I just saw a report recently saying the birth rate in our country now is 1.6 children per family, which is down below the 2 mark. What do you see? Are young people thinking about that? Are they aware of that? Is that an issue about when to have a family, whether to have a family, when to start a family?
I think it is. I mean, I know that in my circles, it's definitely something that everyone is aware of and concerned of. And I think on the conservative side, it definitely is an area that we are more prone to be wanting to fix that, because we do want to build, we're focused on the next generation. So we want to build the next generation. We also want to build a world and a culture that we want our children to grow up in. And so I think that is a priority, especially on the conservative side of the aisle. But I think there's a lot of factors that go into it. There's an economic factor that goes into it, that you do have to address these issues, because the cost of having a family isn't going to disappear overnight. And so that's part of the calculation that needs to happen from a policy standpoint. And I think you're seeing a lot of it from different angles in terms of our health too. And that's something that I know the Trump administration has been focused on. And I think culturally too, it's been a hot topic. A lot of people have been talking about health. And I think that's really positive for our country, because I'm glad it's something that the at the national level is getting more attention, but it's something that really the government can't encourage you to do. You have to do it. And I think there's a lot of perverse incentives that can be corrected from a governmental standpoint, but ultimately the impetus has to come from the people. And I think those are conversations my generation is starting to have. And
there are so many issues involved in that issue of the birth rate. So many things involved, especially in our world today. I just wondered if there was, if that was an issue being talked about. Evidently, it is.
I want to jump in back and thank Esther for bringing up AI. I think Dale would probably agree with me. In our high school days, we were happy to be allowed to have a calculator in class. So it's times have changed.
Or we were not allowed to have one.
We're not allowed one way or the other. Yeah. But I wanted to. We have a question that popped up from our newly arrived state director, Gary Harbaugh.
Yes, so we have a new state director here. Yes.
I want to go ahead and show that.
Okay.
His question for our guests is, he says, do you think young people are inclined to act and work locally and at the state level versus seeking to influence issues at the national level?
I'll let Esther start this one, since this is her court.
Yeah, absolutely. So I would say that's a lot of what we do in Leaders Launchpad, state level internship. And I think a lot of people are seeing that it's so much easier to be involved, make a difference at your state level. If you've ever tried to contact your federal congressperson or your state legislator. If you haven't tried either, you should. But, it's so much easier to actually have conversations with the legislators at the state level. And so I think there's also people just realizing, okay, I've written to my congressperson and they were like, I don't care. And so they're like, okay. And so sometimes going on the state level, you can actually make a difference, whereas you might not be able to do that on a national level. And so
sure.
I definitely see that more and more.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Thank you. Thanks, Gary.
All right, guys, we got about 5 minutes or so left here. Ken, you got anything else you wanted to bring up?
Well, I guess my focus, I had a couple. I won't get into the second one. I might mention it, but I think at this point my focus is in watching the events over the weekend with President Putin coming in and meeting with Trump. I found it interesting that a comment he made to Trump regarding our elections, which, we've heard plenty of how Russia interferes with our elections, and that's all been proven as nothing but more fiction. But he mentioned that mail-in voting is what is killing our American elections, and I kind of got insulted by the fact that here we had to have a president from a communist country tell us how our elections were so screwed up by our own choosing of using mail-in voting. And I was glad to hear, I think it was maybe a day later, Trump had responded saying that he's going to look deeper into this or start to address that. So I think getting back to the old, again, we're old, but I don't mind going back to some old-fashioned ways of voting. Voter ID, a good paper ballot, and we have a lot more confidence in the one thing that as a citizen of America, you have a genuine right to, and it is one of the basic foundations of why our country is where it's at and how we were able to go 250 years. It's because we have free elections. So I just found it to be kind of disturbing that here it was, it was one of the things that Putin directly said to Trump while he was here. And I think it's something that we have to pay more attention to. I don't know. What do you guys think?
Yeah. Well, most definitely our elections. I think that's a continuous effort that needs to be made about making our elections better and legal and valid. But paper ballots, yeah, I'm all for that. That's what it takes.
A little less technology in some areas. And I did have another one, but Dale, I don't want to cut you short. If you got something, go ahead.
No, a lot of what I have been focusing on, of course, the Russia, Putin and Trump and their meeting and what's going to happen there, and the war in Ukraine. One of the things about the Ukraine situation and Russia. Well, I guess Russia has taken Crimea, right? I mean, that was basically given to Russia. Has anyone asked the people of Crimea what country they want to be associated with? Has there ever been a poll taken of the people? I just wonder sometimes our leaders get together and they want to take this territory and that territory, and I wonder what the people in those territories, what's their preference, So, and on the same token, I mentioned redistricting before we came on the air. That was also a possible topic that I've been focused on, kind of along the same line. We know states gerrymander these redistricting and everything. Well, what's should districts be based on? What's the criteria for determining how many districts and where they're located in your state? You hear on the news, take California. Well, 40% of the people in California voted Republican in the last election, but only 9% of the districts are in Republican-held districts. Well, who voted for how people voted? Is that what determines how many districts or what districts should be there? It seems to me it ought to be population or some standard that is non-political. Does anyone have an opinion on that? Does anyone know?
I don't know about an opinion, but maybe AI could help us there. I don't know.
Maybe I ought to ask AI. Huh? Did you see where a lady just married a robot?
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Kristen, I think Kristen had something to say on that. Kristen, did you have something to say on that?
I don't know about an opinion. I think it's a really interesting question. I think it's one that we're definitely going to have to wrestle with and find an answer to. I don't think I have the answer, but I think it's one that we do have to come up with some kind of uniform standard, because this is one of those things. It's like elections where you need some kind of uniform standard. Otherwise, it throws the entire country off. But the way that we're doing it currently isn't working. And it's something that you see, California is an extreme case like that. And it really does dilute the whole purpose of having elections and the whole purpose of voting when you redraw the lines the way.
I just wonder if there's a state out there that most people would consider doing it the right way. That they are doing their redistricting, or they are districting of their state in the right way, in the way they go about doing it. If that state exists out there, then maybe that should be the model for the rest of the states in our country. But I don't know what that state is. I don't know where that state is right now. So
me neither.
Yeah.
Well, it certainly is in Massachusetts. They had a 40% of red representation, and there's not one district in Massachusetts. It's certainly not Massachusetts, but yeah. I mean,
have you seen the districting map for the state of Illinois? Have you seen that?
Oh yeah. It looks like something out of a I don't know, a space age game or something. I don't know.
Well, even the governor was interviewed and asked about that, and he said that they let a group of kindergartners draw it up.
I wouldn't be surprised either,
Yeah, and of course everybody laughed about it, ha ha ha.
Yeah.
But it looks like it,
It sure does. Yeah.
Well, guys, we're out of time for this segment, and Esther and Kristen, I want to thank you very much for coming on. We'd like to have you back sometime if that's if you're up for that. And I think it's like I said, I really like this segment, and I think we get into some very, very interesting conversations and topics. So, Ken, any other comments that might pertain to?
Nothing on the comment board. I think everybody's just glad to have Esther and Kristen on and start to get the younger viewpoint that we're looking for. And
we want to get more of this. We want to.
Yeah, I have to thank you two ladies. You have to have a little bit of reassurance that what's coming up. I mean, both Dale and I have grandchildren, so they're not really into that point yet where we can actually look to them and say, hey, looking for a leader out of you, but. It's nice to hear that there really is a growing segment of our younger population that wants to do things and wants to do the right thing. That's to me, that's one of the most important things. So thank you.
Agreed. Thank you.
Thank
Thank you, Kristen. Thank you, Esther.
It's a pleasure to be on. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Oh, that was great having them on. We're gonna definitely have them back.
Yep.
Yeah, no doubt about it.
Hopefully more. I know we're looking to maybe find some turning point people as well. That's another search we have to do. I understand that might be a little harder, but I think we'd love to find some turning point youngsters that we could bring in and get another viewpoint from that side of things as well.
Okay.
Charlie.
Well, Ken, Maringo Mike wants to say something to us real quick here.
Maringo Mike here, asking you to hit that like, subscribe, and especially that notification bell, so you'll be reminded every time we go live. We really do appreciate your support. Now, back to our program.
All right. Thank you, Maringo Mike. Well, Ken, you want to take a minute or two and tell us about this QR code up here on our screen?
That little QR code right there is for you to take your smartphone out and show us that you'd like to support what we're doing here. And all it will do is bring you to a page where you can put in your name and email address, and it will give you access to a platform. We are loading up the platform with a lot of our earliest, and we have a number of new things that have to be loaded there, but that platform contains a lot of our commenters over the time, our people that have been writing different and get basically different video programs that we've done over the years. Gives you access to that, as well as a platform of other people that are supporters. So it's just a matter of getting your smartphone out and signing up for us. Let us know you're a supporter, and we always appreciate that.
All right. Well, Ken, let's move into our next segment here. And tonight we have another installment of Meet the Founders from our leader, Larry Hudson. One of our region captains has been heading up this series on Meet the Founders for some time now. And he has finally ended his segments on George Washington. So caught up with Larry here a while back, and we recorded the first segment on Ben Franklin. And I'll tell you,
before you jump into that, let me throw up one comment from, again, Gary is commenting here. Just when you mentioned finding the state that might be a good model, Gary piped up and said, I think Indiana was graded as an A for the way our districts are drawn. Maybe we need to look further into that.
Maybe we are a model state.
Well, see the grades. I wanted to throw that in there before we got into Ben Franklin, just so we didn't lose it.
See, I always thought that population was the basics for that. Was the I don't know what do I want to say, that the objective was that every district would have about the same population.
Yeah.
And I do remember here in Indiana at one time, back in the day when I wasn't getting involved in this sort of stuff, that we did pretty much have that here in Indiana.
Well, and I think a lot of that depends on the census now. There's been talk about how the census has been used wrong as well. So yeah.
So I could understand how that seems, if that's the basic measure, then I could see where population changes would then dictate redesigning, reorganizing the district to get to that population number. So, or creating more districts, or reducing districts. I combining. I don't know what.
Right.
I know very little about the process, quite honestly. But.
Yeah. Well, I didn't mean to throw off the introduction of Ben Franklin, but go ahead and get us started on that.
All right. Let's get with Larry Hudson here, and I hope you'll appreciate, because I learned some things about Ben Franklin that I wasn't aware of. One of the things, and Larry points this out, is his age. He was at the time of the signing of the Declaration, he was 80 years old, and was in an area of 20 years or more older than a lot of the other key founders involved in the founding of our country. So very, very interesting. So anyway, let me bring on my interview with Larry Hudson. Greetings, everyone. Well, it's time to move on to another one of our founders. As you know, we've finally wrapped up on George Washington. So Larry is going to bring us on here and introduce us to Ben Franklin, So let's bring Larry on here and we'll get started. Hello, Larry.
Hello, Dale. How are you?
Good to see you. So we're ready to go on Ben Franklin, right?
Benjamin Franklin. Yes.
Okay, well,
family.
All right. Now, I've kind of looked over your notes. Looks like we got a lot to cover here. It's going to be fascinating, I'm sure. So where do you want to start?
Oh, gosh. I guess first off, I should note that Franklin, unlike the other founders, was not a young man when our country declared its independence. Actually, he was 70 years old in 1776.
Wow.
Yeah. So he was by far the oldest of the leading founders. Well, I don't know, 26 years older than Washington, 29, I think, than John Adams, 37, I think, than Jefferson.
Almost. That means he was 80 years old when the convention, at Constitutional Convention, right?
Correct. He was, I think, 81. He was 50 years older than both Hamilton and Madison. So I guess what I want to stress at the outset is he's from an entirely different generation.
Sure.
Men that I mentioned, and so it shouldn't come as a surprise, as we'll learn as we go on, that he was much more supportive of the crown than they were, and in fact, in his early years, he was considered a loyalist, a firm monarchist, and he was already well known throughout the colonies, even world famous.
That right? Well, how do you mean he was well known, in world famous? How do you mean?
Well, for the most part, I think, and for most of us, I would say that Franklin is probably best known as a printer, publisher, certainly a scientist, and an inventor. But by the time we declared our independence in 1776, he had his own newspaper, the Pennsylvania Gazette. It was the most prominent publication in the colonies. He had become the official government printer for the colony of Pennsylvania, the Commonwealth. He had been appointed Postmaster General of the colonies at one point. He had invented the Franklin fireplace, or what ultimately became known as the Franklin stove. Right. He conducted what became his world famous kite experiments with electricity.
Right.
He'd invented the lightning rod. He even invented the urinary catheter shortly in that time frame. And he was elected to the Pennsylvania Second Continental Congress as a Pennsylvania delegate. So just a few of his noteworthy accomplishments before ever becoming a founding father. But on the other hand, I think far less of us will probably know that he was the only founder to have signed all four documents that most consider to be responsible for our American independence. That the Declaration of Independence that started the process, he signed that. The Treaty of Alliance with France that really brought France into the war on our side during the Revolutionary War. He signed the Treaty of Paris that ended that war. And then ultimately he signed the American Constitution that set up our Republican form of government, and wow. All of that after the age of 70.
So, well, there's so many different aspects of his life that you've made note of here. Where do we begin?
Well, I'd like to start at the beginning. We won't stay there for a long period of time, but I think it's important to contrast his early life with that of the majority of the other founders, because Franklin really was born of much more humble origins. I think it was 1706. He came into this world in Boston, at that time a city of about 7,000 people. His father, Josiah, was a dissenter from the Church of England, what we later called a Puritan. He came to America with his wife. I think her name was Anne, and they had 3 children, none of which were Ben. She would later bear him 4 more children here in this country. Again, none were Ben. And then following her death, Josiah married Abiah Folger, who would go on to give him 10 more children. And
Good Lord.
Ben was their 8th and the 15th of what totaled 17 children, and his father's 10th and last son. Now, it's important to know that Josiah was a tradesman. He was not a man of letters. He was called a chandler, which is a person who specializes in making candles and soap. I think it's from tallow of animals, the fat of animals. And it was a hot, dirty, and rather foul-smelling business that Ben did not enjoy.
Mm. Well, my goodness, 2 wives and 17 children between them. Wow. And Ben was number 15.
Mm-hmm.
I can't understand how a family that large could make it back in those days. I mean, when you think about it, just feeding and clothing that many children, not to mention educating them, what would this seems like it would be a monumental task. Am I right?
Yep, you're correct, and that was the case here. His trade, as I said, he was a tradesman and not a lettered person. He was not a professional. Left him constantly at work, just struggling, to put food on the table. And I think of the 7 girls and 10 boys, the 17, 4 did die young, under the age of 4. So only 13, survived to adulthood. But I couldn't find very much about his siblings except for James, an older brother from the same mother, the second wife. And he goes on to become a printer and a newspaper publisher, and Ben becomes involved with him, and we'll meet him shortly.
Okay. All right. Well, considering all of Franklin's accomplishments that you've highlighted earlier, I think you wanted to compare and contrast his education with the other founders. How much education did he have? It couldn't have been a whole lot.
Well, yeah, that's the surprising thing. Josiah was a very devout Puritan, belonged to a Puritan congregation. Remember, Puritans were largely, they were English Protestants who sought to rid the Church of England, what became the Anglican Church. They wanted to rid that church of what they thought to be Roman Catholic practices. And he was a member of the Congregational Old South Church, as I recall, where he served as a tithing man.
Okay.
Yeah, I thought that might perk your interest.
Okay. Tithing, that reminds me of tithing at church, a church tithe. What is a tithing man?
Well, yeah, it's actually a lot more than that. I looked into that a little bit to find out. Tithing men were basically authorized to keep order in the church. They were in charge of the behavior of the congregation. Church attendance wasn't optional in Ben's day. You were forced to pay money to the church, and you were forced to belong to the church. And so he was a record keeper, I guess, for this purpose. And as the name implies, tithing man, he was the financial recorder in the church, kept track of the tithes. I even read that some churches allowed their tithing men, or didn't allow, they asked them or directed them to visit taverns and inns to see how much liquor was being consumed. They made sure children were properly schooled in the catechism. In some instances, they were even given, evidently, the power to imprison those who didn't accept the correction. So I think basically they were the enforcers in the church, worked side by side with the pastor.
A pretty significant position in the church, I would think.
Yeah.
At that time. All right.
A devout man.
Yeah. So Ben was brought up in that environment, right? So
yes, he was, and he didn't like it.
And he didn't like it. Well, how about his education? How was he educated?
Well, as you might suspect, his father wanted him to become a minister. He wanted to prepare him for the ministry. So I think it was at the age of 8, he sent him to Boston Latin School for that preparation. But that only lasted about a year just because of the expense involved. There were no public schools then. Everything was tutored. So he attended an ordinary school, a tutor who had several students under his charge. I think that lasted another year before father withdrew him, so he could bring him back home and help with the business of candle and soap making. So he got 2 years, basically, of formal schooling. That's all he ever received. And of course, that's in stark contrast, to the classical education that Jefferson and Adams and Mason and Hamilton and all those received. And
sure.
So it was very little formal education. By all accounts, though I was reading in his autobiography, he said he was very fond of reading from the earliest that he could remember. And there was never a time, I think he said, that he couldn't read, and that he was generally the leader among the boys and often led them into scrapes.
Oh, really?
but in general, Franklin was just self-taught.
Yeah. Well, with only 2 years of schooling, then how does he accomplish all the things that you've told us that he accomplished?
Well, I as I said just a moment ago, he was a voracious reader.
Yeah.
And he learned to write early on. I don't know how, but perhaps he was a savant in some respects, although I've not read that term being used to describe him. He did teach himself to be a very a good writer, and he was a voracious reader. In fact, at the age of 12, his father bound him as an apprentice to his older brother, this James that I mentioned earlier, who was a printer. He bound him as an apprentice. This was an indentured servitude. It was a contract that all three parties signed, and it was to last until he reached the age of 21. So that would be a period of 9 years that he was going to be paid a journeyman's wage, but only in the last year of that servitude would he receive that wage. So for the first 8 years, he was going to work for his brother for nothing. And he complained in his autobiography that his brother often beat him. And so at the age, I think, of 17 it was, he violated his apprenticeship and basically ran away from home, ran off to Philadelphia to seek a new start in life. And it made him a fugitive indentured servant in the process.
Wow. So at the age of 17, he's out in the city by himself. He meets his future wife, you say here, okay, goes to London and reflects on religion. How does this all come about?
Well, upon getting to Philadelphia, again, I'm referring back to his autobiography. He recalled in there walking up, I don't know, Market Street, I think it was. He had these big puffy rolls of bread, 3 of them, one under each arm and one in his hands, and he was munching on that third one. And it was here that he chanced to walk by the home of a young lady who he finds out later is named Deborah Reed. She was standing in the doorway and apparently took notice of him and kind of laughed. And they soon began a courtship. And he even moved in to the Reed home as a renter. She was a single woman, divorced. No, her husband had died, as I remember now. And so she rented a room in her home out for income. And she grew quite fond of him during his stay there. And somewhere along the line, he exchanged some promises about marriage with Deborah. But her mother didn't think it was a good idea at the time. And I guess after a few months, he was encouraged by someone to open a printing house. And so he eventually traveled to London to go purchase the necessary printing equipment that he would need in opening this printing house. And the sponsor who talked him into this was going to provide him letters of introduction and provide money to cover his travel and expenses to get there and during his stay there. So he decided to try this venture, and he just sailed off to London, leaving her in the lurch, so to speak. We'll come back to her later because he does marry her. But after he got to London, he found that his sponsor had not sent the promised letters of introduction, or the money for that matter, as he had promised. So he wound up just staying in London and finding work to support himself in a printing house. And he quickly forgot all about her, and in fact only wrote her one letter during the whole time he was there. But he did, while there, manage to write a dissertation on liberty and the necessity, pleasure, and pain. And most people at the time thought that should be labeled a deist-inspired pamphlet. So that's where we're headed with his religion.
So was Franklin considered a deist? Is that how you pronounce it? Deist?
Yeah.
Or even an atheist?
Yeah. Well, a lot of people thought he was an atheist. Of course, deism, as I understood it, and I think it's still that today, it's a belief in God, but it's based on reason and observation as opposed to revelation or faith.
It's kind of strange because he was raised in such a religious home.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
I think that had a lot to do, reading between the lines. There may be more in his autobiography on that, but I think that set him against. In the colonies, there are a number of denominations, and he was really, like Jefferson in that regard, against denominations. He thought that they diluted and corrupted true religion. And in my reading, I would say that Franklin's religious beliefs, they changed over time. Initially, I don't know where he got this idea, but he argued in this essay that I mentioned, this dissertation on liberty and necessity, pleasure, and pain. He argued that since we human beings have no real freedom of choice, we're not morally responsible for our actions. Now, I don't know where he read or learned to come on that philosophy.
Yeah.
But he did later repudiate the pamphlet entirely. He burned every copy but one that he still had in his possession and tried to corral those that managed to get out. Don't know how successful he was. But he apparently maintained a strong position as a deist for several years until he developed more concrete beliefs about what he considered the proper relationship between his God and man. Mm-hmm. And it prompted him to write later on what he called his liturgy. He entitled that Articles of Belief and Acts of Religion. And that served, I think, as his personal creed really through the remainder of his life.
Well, can you tell us a bit about what he wrote in his views?
Well, it's lengthy. I'm not gonna bore you with everything, but in it he professed. I thought this was interesting. He professed a belief in one God, capital G, who created the universe and endowed humans with reason so that they could discover his laws. And then he also went on to write that there was an infinite God, and that this God, with the capital G, created many gods who were spelled with a small g. They were exceedingly wise gods, but lesser gods than the infinite God. They were good, very powerful, and that each had made for himself a glorious sun and a surrounding system of planets very much like our own. And it was wise and a good God of our solar system that he chose for his object of praise and adoration. And then he went on to say that he loved this God for his goodness and for his wisdom, and that he should praise him continually, and that he should be virtuous in order to please him. I found that really strange.
So Franklin never became a Christian, right, or professed any Orthodox religious denomination, right?
No, I think that's correct. I think you could say that he did have some Christian tenets, if you will. He was very familiar with the Bible. We know that, and you might remember, and we'll cover this later when he gets to the Constitution or the convention, I should say, in Philadelphia. He proposed the idea of prayer during the convention, during a hard period of time.
Yeah.
He requested that one or more clergy officiate this prayer service every morning before the convention began its session. So I think it's clear to say that he was doubtful, however, as to the divinity of Christ. So he was never a Christian in that regard. Now, I did find a letter or remnants of a letter that he wrote to a fellow founder, and he wrote this in 1790, and he said, it's to Ezra Stiles, who was a fellow founder. He says, "As to Jesus of Nazareth, my opinion of whom your particularly desire, I think his system of morals and his religion, as he left them to us, the best the world ever saw or is like to see. But I apprehend that it has received various corrupting changes, and I have, with most of the present dissenters in England, some doubts as to his divinity, though it is a question I do not dogmatize upon, having never studied it, and I think it needless to busy myself with it now, when I expect soon an opportunity of knowing the truth with less trouble." And I'm not sure what he meant by that.
Yeah.
But Dale, he died just a few months after he wrote that letter.
Did he?
Yeah. So
all right.
He meant he was going to see Christ and ask the question.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what it sounded like to me.
Yeah. I don't know.
All right. This guy, well, obviously this is going to be fascinating, Larry. And unfortunately we're out of time on this part. So looking forward to you coming back and continuing the story for us on Ben Franklin.
All right. I look forward to coming back.
All right. Thanks, Larry.
You bet. Take care.
Another good part on from Larry Hudson. So look forward to our next segment on Ben Franklin. Thank you.
Well, as usual, very interesting start. Enjoyed that. You're muted, Dale.
Very good, very good. Yeah, Larry does a wonderful job on these, and so I am looking for looking forward to many more from him. So, okay, let's move on. Hey, let's let Marengo Mike give us another quick reminder here real quick, okay?
Sounds good.
Rango Mike here, asking you to hit that like, subscribe, and especially that notification bell so you'll be reminded every time we go live. We really do appreciate your support. Now, back to our program.
All right. Good going, Marengo Mike. Well, every week we try to bring to you a what we call Dave's Daily Dose. Comes from it's an audio piece from our contributor up in Minnesota, David Punt, and he's got another one here for us. This one kind of pertains. This is a little late. I should have probably played this maybe last week or so, but when the hearings were going on. But I thought it'd be interesting to hear. This has to do with some of the hearings on Biden's mental capacity and his during his presidential run. So let's see what Dave has to say here.
The Washington Examiner reports that the next Biden guys to talk about auto pen will be former Chief of Staff Ron Klain this Thursday and former counselor to the president Steve Ricchetti next Wednesday. And maybe they'll have something to say, or maybe they'll take the fifth to avoid testifying against themselves. The question remains, testifying against themselves about what? This is Dave's Daily Dose on BrokenRoadRadio.com. I'm David Allen Punt. Lawyers David Schertler and Mark McDougall, representing Uncle Joe's doctor, Kevin O'Connor, told the Washington Examiner, "We want to emphasize that asserting the Fifth Amendment privilege does not imply Dr. O'Connor has committed any crime." Let's see if we can parse that information a bit, shall we? The statement that O'Connor and Annie Tomasini and Tony Bernal made was something like, "On advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer the question pursuant to my Fifth Amendment rights under the Constitution." My dog-eared copy of the U.S. Constitution outlines a bunch of stuff about grand jury testimony and double jeopardy. The phrase that interests us at this point in time is that no person shall be compelled in any criminal case to testify against himself or herself. But the O'Connor's legal beagles just said that we shouldn't take the implication that the doc committed a crime. Now I'm confused, as are lots of others in the audience and in the cheap seats. Ryan Sandel works for the Wayland Law Office in Frisco, Texas. For those of you not familiar with Frisco, it's a Dallas suburb and just down the street from a Hooters restaurant. Sandel says there are a number of reasons to take the fifth that have nothing to do with guilt, like you can't talk, you don't want to, you have a fear of public speaking, or you don't want to be cross-examined by a legal beagle. So we're to believe that 3 Biden people have a fear of public speaking or don't want to be cross-examined? Okay. Can we believe there's something else going on? Sure, that's okay too. So let's do that, and let's keep asking questions. I'm David Allen Punt.
David, it does a really good job on those
Yeah, it's always very interesting.
daily doses.
Very, very good doses. Yep.
You know, he'll of course he broadcasts up out of Minnesota. He'll send me 4 or 5 of these, and they're all from 1 week. You know, I don't know how he finds the time to do all these, because he scripts out all those.
Yeah.
So those are there's a lot of preparation that goes into doing those things.
A lot of early morning, late nights, I guess, you know.
It sounds like he's just talking about the topic that he's trying to address. but that takes some preparation to do that. So anyway, I hope you all enjoy his what he does for us in Dave's Daily Dose by David Clun. Well, listen, Ken, we've got a big Convention of States Summit coming up in September. And you and I are going to be there. COS Today is going to be there. We're going to get some, hopefully, some great interviews in. We're also going to have a table there where people can learn about, if they're interested, can certainly learn how we have put together this live stream for the state of Indiana, and the trials and tribulations you might want to say that we've gone through and still go through, it seems. But anyway, so we'll have a table there to talk to people that are interested in doing this, maybe in their own state. So anyway, let's. Ken has produced a very, very nice video talking about our upcoming summit, and if I assume if you haven't registered as yet, you can still. So let's take a look at that this evening then.
Wrangle Mike here with a reminder of an event you're not going to want to miss. The Race to Freedom Summit is going to be held right here in Indianapolis, September 18th through the 20th, and it's coming quicker than you think. So watch the video and get yourself registered for the Race to Freedom Summit here in Indianapolis. See you there.
Hey, Convention of States, this is Lieutenant Governor Micah Beckwith. We're so happy to have you here in Indiana. I'm a big supporter of an Article 5 convention. I love what you're doing. Keep driving that ball home, and welcome to Indianapolis.
We're checking in at the Sheridan. Come and join us. For Race to Freedom. Hey, Kate Spade, check it out. Join us in Indy. Ladies and gentlemen, start your engines. Race to Freedom.
Museum. He's a volunteer here. Come to the museum. You're going to love it. This is a great place. Rich comes out here once a month from St. Louis, Missouri. He volunteers this time just like you're doing. Come meet Rich at the museum.
All right.
Yeah, I know that QR code doesn't stay up very long on the video there when we're showing it, but if you go to conventionstates.com/summit 2025, you'll be able to register there. So
okay, all right. Well, Ken, let's talk about briefly what's coming up on COS today. And next Monday is the fourth Monday of every month. And that's the Monday that we change the format to a panel discussion. This is much more of a panel discussion than our In Focus segment that we do during the weekly COS Today broadcast. So this is the roundtable coming up on the 25th, and the topic is going to be birthright citizenship. So I think that's going to be a very interesting topic. Certainly an issue that's been in the news and still is in the news, but going to be a very, very good discussion. So that's coming up next Monday on COS Today Roundtable. Then the following Monday is Labor Day, September 1st. Can't believe it's almost September 1st. Can't believe.
I know it.
Boy, you're getting old. The days are the time's flying, isn't it?
Yeah, it's just, and it's one of those things the older you get, the more realization you have with that.
I think so. So.
They always tell you that, so it's true.
So anyway, we will, as we do on most holidays, we'll do a best of, or perhaps we got to think about this, Ken. How are we going to do this? Maybe pre-record something. Anyway, it'll be a recorded program. We won't be on live. So then coming up the following week, which will be September 8th, we're going to have Michael Messier come back and talk to us about media bias. I think he's going to take a particular news event that's going on right now and analyze it for us from
Nice.
a media bias. It ought to be very interesting. And he's been doing this for many, many years. So it ought to be a very interesting program. I think so. All right. Well, as usual, if anyone has a comment or a question about our broadcast this evening, feel free to drop us an email at raiseyourvoicecos@gmail.com. raiseyourvoicecos@gmail.com. All right. Well, we're going to jump to another COS Basics installment from John Ackerman. This one, I think, is one, Ken, where the volume, everyone may have to turn their volume up just a tad to hear him clearly. But this has to do with how in an Article 5 Convention of States, one vote per state is, I think, the topic that he's addressing. So we'll see how this goes. And Ken and I will be right back with you. And we'll then let Maringo Mike close us out for the evening. So here we go.
Convention of States, Indiana, with COS Basics. Another point from attorney Rita M. Peters, who writes that voting at an Article 5 convention will be on a one state, one vote basis. One state, one vote. This is a matter of precedent. The universal precedent for voting at an interstate convention is on a one state, one vote basis. It's not a convention of delegates, but a convention of states. Each state gets a vote. This is the reason Article 5 did not specify the number of delegates that each state could send. The states can send as many delegates as they like, but each state gets one vote. This is also a matter of history. In 1788, the Virginia legislature correctly called this process a convention of states in the first application ever passed under Article 5, and nothing has changed since then. It's also a matter of law. The Supreme Court has also referred to it as a convention of states. Smith v. Union Bank of Georgetown, 30 U.S. 518 in 1831. And so I repeat Attorney Rita M. Peters' point. Voting at an Article 5 convention will be on a one state, one vote basis.
Another good one from John.
As it should be, one state, one vote. Yes, another good one.
One state, one vote. That's right. Well, Ken, I think that's a wrap for this evening. Any comments or questions from viewers?
No, we left off with Gary's comment on the districting of Indiana, and that's where we left off. So nothing to add to that. I think everybody was satisfied with his answer.
I would imagine most of our regular viewers know who we're talking about when we say Gary Harbaugh. He's been on COS Today many, many times. And I want to take this opportunity to officially congratulate Gary. Gary is the new state director for Convention of States here in Indiana. Our previous state director, Dale Tipton, is now taking over as regional director, flyover region. So Ken, we now have to really pay attention to what Dale says to us.
I guess. Yeah. I wonder why you didn't take that route, Dale. You just kind of took a different turn, didn't you?
No. I enjoy what we're doing here.
You got to be starting to feel pretty old at this point. You're now what? Twice removed.
Yes. I preceded Dale Tipton as state director, and now Dale Tipton has come and gone, and now Gary Harbaugh is state director. So
very good.
Gary will do a good job.
Well, we've been blessed as a state to have the leadership that we've enjoyed over the years. So
yes.
I guess it's a good time to plug new volunteers, and it's always good to have a new crop of volunteers coming in because you'd never know where the next state director is going to come from.
That's right.
Yeah.
It's very interesting. When Dale Tipton first came into Convention of States, Gary, I think at that time, Gary was, I don't know, a region captain, or he was in some role, but he kind of brought Dale Tipton into Convention of States. Yeah. And I can clearly remember Gary telling me, "Hey, keep an eye on this Dale Tipton. I think he's going to be a good guy." And Dale was from a part of the state where we had not been able to get any kind of foothold at all. And we tried different district captains, region captains, and we just could not get a foothold up there. And so I remember Gary clearly saying, "Hey, keep an eye on Dale Tipton. He's going to be a good guy for us up there." And sure enough, he did establish a great foothold up in the northwestern part of our state.
Yeah. And now it's come full circle.
And now he became state director, and now he's going to become regional director.
Yeah.
So congratulations to Dale, and congratulations to Gary. So I'm all very, very proud and glad to see Gary step forward on this. So, well, I think that's it, Ken. Unless you got anything else, we'll let me get over here to Maringo Mike, and we'll let Maringo Mike close us out for the evening. All right?
Take it away.
All right. Thanks.
Maringo Mike here with a reminder that our work to raise the bar on making our federal government accountable to the people is only halfway done. We need to grow our grassroots army of citizens every day to fulfill the vision of our forefathers and keep our land free and prosperous. So, if you have never signed the petition to show your support, use that QR code and do that now. While you're there, why not kick it up a notch and volunteer for many of the positions available where your talents can make a difference as we march into a new year. Thank you, and God bless.